Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this 2022 Election Candidate Forum for the Thurston County Auditor. This forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County in collaboration with Thurston Community Media. The League of Women Voters is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public to defend our democracy and empower voters. I am Donna Cobb from the League, and I will be moderating this forum. Our timekeeper is Karen Tweet. The candidates are Sal Militello and Mary Hall. For this forum, each candidate will have the opportunity to answer a series of questions. The first question will be to the candidates in alphabetical order, and then will be alternated so that each has the chance to start first. Candidates will also have a chance to ask their opponent a question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to questions. The timer will show when 15 seconds are left, and then will show a stop sign when the time is up. If you don't notice the sign, I will tell you when your time is up. For the first question, I will begin with Mary Hall. Why are you the better candidate for this position?
Well, so I've got 26 years of elections experience, started in Pierce County in 1996. And while the auditor's office does a lot more than elections, that's in the forefront right now. And that is really the busiest task of the auditor's office. But I also went to school for accounting. I oversee county finance. I oversee passports, licensing, recording of documents. And I've served in this position since 2013. We've won a lot of awards. I'm very proud of the team that I've built. And I think the office functions incredibly well. So I would really hope that voters will vote to retain me so I can take it to the next level. It's a very integral part of Thurston County government. So I serve on various committees as well.
Thank you. Sal Militello, would you like me to repeat the question? Yes. Why are you the better candidate for this position?
I'm the better candidate because I'm fresh. I'm fresh to government. I've not worked in government, so I'm not tied to a bureaucracy. I'm not tied to a party. My experience comes from my business. I've been incorporated since 2003. A lot of the work that I do is managing large projects, but a lot of those projects are projects that were already in flight and are failing. This is where I come in and perform a complete audit of that project, not just financials, but also resources and so on, so top to bottom, which includes contracts, right? Sometimes those contracts influence how a project is managed. And then, of course, the financials. My projects, except for one, which was a government project, have all been on time. And and they've also been under budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so for the second question, I'll begin with Sal Militello. What do you think are the most important responsibilities for a county auditor, and what will be your top priority if you are elected?
Right. The most important is the financials, making sure that there's financial integrity, making sure there's a track record for each financial transaction, tie them back to contracts if that's the case. Take a look at those contracts as well. So financials would be the most important. Now, Mary makes a good point. Right now, elections are fast upon us, and she's heads down with that, and we appreciate that. But there's also a lot more to county auditor than just elections.
Thank you. Mary Hall, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay. What do you think are the most important responsibilities for a county auditor, and what will be your top priority if elected?
I like to call the auditor's office the Swiss Army knife of county government. When the legislature didn't know what to do with something that needed to be done, they assigned it to the auditor. So I can't say that there's one thing that's more important than the other. It's all important. But the auditor is a gatekeeper of democracy, and keeping our elections free, fair, safe, and secure, transparent is critical. And maintaining your staff, which is difficult in today's environment when election officials are receiving threats because of disinformation and false rhetoric. But financial services is also very important, as well as our internal audit function. And I'm very proud of that. Internal audit ensures that we have tight controls over our finances, segregation of duties to prevent fraud. And the other services we offer to the public are equally important. So I think every division is very important in this position.
Thank you. And the third question then goes to Mary Hall. Given the current controversies around election integrity, how will you ensure trust in the election process?
So one of the things that I've really been working on is our observer program. I think when people come in and witness the process, they walk away trusting the process because there are many, many checks and balances. So I try to get as many people through our ballot processing center as possible. We're also using our voters guide to provide information. We're doing a lot with social media, with videos of showing how ballots are processed and how the election process works. And really, we're going to have to do it one voter at a time. But we're very big on transparency. And I think when people come in and view the process, they're going to trust it more. But we also have to work to beat down the false rhetoric that is out there. And that's going to take partnerships with not only my office, but the Secretary of State's office and every single auditor's office across the state, as well as our national partners, CISA, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security.
Thank you. Sal Militello, how will you ensure trust in the election process given the controversies around elections today?
It's going to be really easy, transparency. And it's not just about the process. The process should include from the time those ballots are printed to where they're distributed, including to the voters themselves. Also take a look at the voter rolls. We want to make sure those voter rolls are cleaned up. If we go to the county auditor website today, it states that voter rolls were cleaned up, and here's an example. We don't want examples. We want to know who was cleaned up, how those voter rolls were cleaned up, and what can we do to prevent this in the future. It's obvious that there's dead folks on the voter rolls. That happens. So we want to make sure that we not only address dead voter rolls, but those voters that have moved. There was an independent canvassing of voters, which was very interesting. Just because it was independent doesn't mean it was inaccurate. It just meant it was independent, in which they did a good job. I know some of those folks, but anyway, that's my plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And the fourth question goes to Sal Militello. An audit of the state's 2020 election revealed ballot rejection rates that were statistically higher for people of certain ages, race, and ethnicity. Are you familiar with this study, and what would you do to address these discrepancies in ballot rejection rates?
The first thing is really understand where this data is coming from, because there's, as Mary pointed out, there's a lot of misinformation, and that includes within the government itself. Right, we're not new to that. We need to understand the source of that data, and then take a real good analysis of it, and then go back and compare, and making sure that not only is that data accurate, but how do we apply it moving forward, and what ideas can we have? And I think it would be really helpful if we had our constituents participate. Everyone should participate in their government, and auditor's role, as Mary said, is a very important role. It covers a lot of aspects, and I think the citizens of this county deserve not only transparency, but also engagement. And I want to make sure that the door is open for all.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mary Hall, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
An audit of the state's 2020 election revealed that ballot rejection rates were statistically higher for people of certain ages, races, and ethnicity. Are you familiar with this study, and what would you do to address these discrepancies in ballot rejection rates?
Sure. This was a study that was conducted by the state auditor's office as a directive from the state legislature. And I think what's interesting about the numbers is, number one, they grouped the entire state together. And so rejection rates were higher in counties that had higher demographics of certain nationalities and origins. I think we're do a good job with our signature verification and work with the state patrol to ensure that we've got good training. But I think we need to do some voter outreach. We're also taking some implicit bias training to make sure that that is not a factor. But the thing about the young people is they no longer treat cursive in school. So I think what we really need to do is look for an alternative of how do we verify voters' identity in a manner other than using a signature.
Thank you. And the fifth question goes to Mary Hall. One of the major election changes in the last few years is to allow people to register to vote and then vote on Election Day. Do you support this practice? Why or why not?
I do support this practice. I think the old deadlines were before we had technology. Our voter registration system is real time. So when we register somebody to vote, that gets bounced off the Department of Licensing or the Social Security Administration. So to register to vote, they have to present a valid driver's license. So that's one check. When the way that we process ballots and the fact that it's all real time, a person could return 2 ballots, but only one will count, because when it goes through our sorter and it checks in the ballot, it freezes the records, the voter's records, so no other ballot would be able to be received. And because it's real time, it gets bounced against these other agencies. And I think it's very secure. I think it's very friendly, and it makes voting accessible.
Thank you. Sal Militello, one of the major election changes in the last few years is to allow people to register to vote and then to vote on Election Day. Do you support this practice, and why not?
I would only support it in very limited circumstances. Voter registration and voter fraud is rampant. A driver's license does not tell us if that person is a citizen of the state. We can't validate that per the law. So a driver's license to me can be handed out. I can go to DOL and show very little to get a driver's license. So I would have to assume that's true for every voter, right? So in order to make sure that we keep with voter integrity and that we make sure our voting process is fair to everyone, it's very important that if you're going to register to vote and you're going to just use your driver's license on the same day, to me that's a little suspicious, right? And I think it's very important that we take a look at all aspects of voter registration and how it's performed, given the fact that we're not allowed to use proof of citizenship for a voter. That's very concerning. Thank you.
Thank you. And the sixth and final question goes to Sal Militello. How do you balance the public's right to transparency through mechanisms such as public records requests with the need to protect election security?
Protecting election security would mean Sal Militello gets to vote. How did he vote? Okay, that's not for public, right? But that ballot that doesn't show my name on it and any other personal information that could tie it to me, well, that should be available to the public, and they're not, unfortunately. It's very important. Transparency in these elections is what's raised so many questions. You can call it misinformation, you can call it whatever you want. The fact is, a lot of us in this country have a lot of questions about how voting occurs, not just the process of how ballots are counted, but again, how are those ballots printed, where are they distributed to, and do the counts of the ballots were printed, do they align with the voter rolls? Meaning if there are 100 voters, I print 100 ballots, I send them out, and does that match? And that doesn't always match. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Hall, how do you balance the public's right to transparency through mechanisms such as public records request with the need to protect election security?
Well, we want to be as transparent as possible. So we'll release anything we can that won't jeopardize the security or the secrecy of the vote. And there are a couple things you have to consider. You know, people have requested our cast vote record, for example. Well, with the cast vote record and certain reports, there are ways that you could potentially tie that back to the voter. So we have to protect that because secrecy of the vote is paramount. If you release the paper ballots, people could sign their ballot. That could cause vote buying or vote selling. I'll sell my vote. You can get the ballot, you can verify. So we really have to think about that when we think about what's public and what's not. But we'll release any records that we can. There are certain provisions where they can come in and view them, like ballot envelopes, but we're not going to give them a picture of the person's signature, for example. So we work hard to balance that with security.
Thank you. Okay, so candidates, you now have an opportunity to ask your opponent a question, beginning with Mary Hall. The question must be stated within 30 seconds, and opponents have 1 minute to respond. Go ahead.
So I was emailing a constituent, and you must have been in the email chain, and you came back with a statement that vote by mail was wrought with fraud. So if elected, would you try to do away with vote by mail? Or what would you do?
I lived in Europe for a while, Mary. Not even Europe uses vote by mail. There is no country that I know of in this world that uses vote by mail. Europe did try it in the past. It was ridden with fraud. That's why we have so many questions today about the fraud in mail-in ballots. Not since we've gone to mail-in ballots in this state has a Republican been elected as governor to the state. And I don't know how far back this county goes, but that's a good example of why we're getting questions about our election integrity. So as soon as we go to mail-in ballot, immediately that one party wins. And that's true for Oregon, that's true for state of California, that's true for New York, and I can go on and on. So that's where that comes from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to ask Mary Hall a question now?
Yes, Mary. I'm out there doorbelling, getting a lot of good feedback, and so on. And I think this government in Thurston County has been pretty much a one-party system. How do we include all citizens in involvement and engagement in this county, and not all decisions are made by a party's agenda or a party's talking points? It should be all the citizens of this county, and apparently that doesn't always happen, unfortunately. So what can you do and what can we do to improve that?
All I can control is what I can control, and that's safe, secure, free, and fair elections. We do everything we can to be as nonpartisan as possible. We have both parties working in our ballot processing center. It's really up to the voters to elect their leaders. So I'm not sure that I have a lot of control over who wins these races. I really don't care who wins. I care who votes.
Okay, thank you. Now, each of you have an opportunity to do a 1-minute closing statement, and I think we'll start with Sal Militello.
Thank you. So if the voters of this county are looking for a change, they're looking for transparency, they're looking for honesty, and they're looking for practical experience outside the government, I'm your candidate. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the answer. If I don't know the answer, I will get back to you. I think it's very important to not just use the word transparency. We have to exercise transparency. The other closing argument for me would be the case that I have not only very practical experience, I have successful experience. I have a proven track record. I'm known for my project auditing, I'm known for my financial auditing, and I also have a very good long experience of not only running my own company, but working with the Fortune 1000, and I can apply that experience to the county auditor's position. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Hall?
I want to thank the voters of Thurston County for allowing me to serve for the last 13 years. It truly has been an honor. And we've done a lot of great things. We've won a lot of awards. We conducted a very successful elections in 2020. It was the most secure. It was the most transparent. It was the most audited. It was the most recounted. And we did it during a global pandemic. So I'm very proud of my team and the job that we do every single day for the taxpayers of Thurston County. Now more than ever, we need an experienced election professional to move us through this dark time, to rebuild trust in elections, to conduct them with transparency, make them fair, free, safe, and secure. And I believe I'm that candidate. I would love to serve another 4 years. I will continue with the award-winning job that I've done in the last 13 years.
Thank you. And thank you, Sal Militello and Mary Hall, for participating in this forum. We thank TC Media for producing it. Expect to receive your ballot mid-October. Voting begins on October 21st and must be mailed or placed in a ballot box by 8 p.m. on November 8th. If you can register to vote online through October 31st at vote.wa.gov and in person until 8 p.m. at the Thurston County Auditor's Office on November 8th. We encourage our viewers to be a voter in this election. Thank you.
Thank you.